Hello, this is Nicole Kali, Haunted Mid-Atlantic Tales 11. How are you? We're wrapping up Black History Month, and I know many of you don't celebrate it, not just because it's the shortest month of the year, but because you want to extend the celebration of our ancestry to a year-round, real-time, consistent thing. And I feel the same way. But I also have jam-packed as much supernatural history and folklore as possible for us and by us because I think that that is a very relevant part of our past, our present, and our future. Our experiences are definitely unique, and our perspective about the other side and magic, the supernatural and the spirituality that exist in our world are worth noting. And they're definitely pervasive element in our society today. The Ghost of Virginia by L.B. Taylor Jr. Chapter 45, another wonder performance of Lady. Author's note: in Volume 8 of this series, there is a chapter titled Lady Wonder, the Psychic Horse. Lady was an extraordinary animal, owned by Mr. and Mrs. C.D. Fonda, who had a farm between Richmond and Petersburg, Virginia. They bought the horse in 1924, and soon discovered that it seemed to have the ability to, well, read people's minds. It was telepathic. For over 30 years, Lady made a startling number of accurate prophecies, including predicting the winners of boxing matches, horse races, and even presidential elections. And as the word of mouth passed around, hundreds of the curious descended upon the rural farm to get readings of future events. So more Lady Wonders. Recent research brought to light some additional highlights of this extraordinary horse. Here's a few items. One of the explanations by skeptics of how the horse could read minds was that Mrs. Fonda, either consciously or not, was somehow transmitting clues to Lady. For example, according to a 1927 Richmond Times Dispatch article, when a man inquired how much was 8 and 7 put together, and Lady responded by tapping her hoof 15 times. Some believe Mrs. Fonda had passed on the right number. This was possible. Another time Lady was asked who in this group was wearing a pink dress. The animal thrust its head in the direction of a woman wearing such a color. Again, this might be solved by trickery, but how would one explain the following accounts? Once a spectator took a coin out of his pocket and asked what the date was on it. Neither the horse, Mrs. Fonda, or anyone else saw the face of the coin. Lady calmly tapped out 1914, and the date was absolutely correct. Another time, when a psychic expert, Dr. McLaughlin, and his wife came to test the horse, one of the questions only he and his wife knew what her maiden name was. Mrs. Fonda hadn't been told either, but Lady spelled it out precisely. In the same session, another visitor held a small object hidden in his hand and asked what it was. Lady spelled out knife. Right. He then asked what his companion's name was. Leroy. Right again. Two scientists once wrote down the name Docta, misspelling doctor, on purpose in an attempt to confuse Lady. But Lady then spelled out the words Dokta, just like they had written. 19 years after that, psychologist Dr. Thomas Garrett came to challenge the horse Lady. And just prior to arriving, he had been told by a long-distance telephone operator that a man named Murphy was trying to reach him. He didn't know who that was, so he asked Lady. By tapping out letters, the horse said that Murphy's first name was Pat, and that he wanted to see Dr. Garrett about his wife, Diane Ross, an actress. Later, when the doctor returned the call to the number that was left, a New York theatrical agency, he was told that there was a Diane Ross, and that she was married to a Pat Murphy. All this caused one expert to state, I am perfectly willing to admit that I have no idea how Lady arrives to the correct answers. There is no conscious trickery here. I'm convinced. What's the solution to the puzzle? I don't know. Lady truly was a magnificent, mysterious, and gifted horse. And we should really think about the fact that just because animals don't necessarily speak in the way that we do, they certainly can retain language, and they may know more than we. Chapter 80, A Treasury of African American Ghost Lore. the heavy coffin. There are several variations to this particular legend. This one was told by a woman from Old Point Comfort, Virginia. I did hear one time that there was two girls which were partners, used to go to and fro together. Then one Sunday they decided to go to church, and they went to Sunday school in the morning, also to 11 o'clock service. And that night, one of the girls decided that she wanted to go to the night service, so when the one girl got to the other girl's house, the other girl was combing her hair, and she told the girl, "Leave us, go to church." The other girl said to her in reply, "Before I go to church, I'd rather go to hell with both eyes open without my hair being combed." After them, they went, and the next day, which was Monday, this girl was taken sick. Tuesday, she passed away. On Thursday, they was getting ready for her funeral, and they had taken her to the church. They went to pick up the coffin to get it to the hearse, and they couldn't nobody move it. Then at last, the gang of men put this coffin in the hearse. They had 4 horses pulling the coffin. The 4 of them could not move it either. So then they decided to take this coffin out of its hearse and open it to see what was the trouble. And when they opened it, there was a black cat in there, combing this girl's hair with its claw. Chapter 84, Internet Eeriness. The balloon. Submitted anonymously on the internet. About a month after my father passed away in January 1977, my mother and brother were having a conversation at our house when a strange event occurred. In the right front corner of the living room, resting on the carpet, was a red balloon that had come with some flowers I had sent to my mother for her 48th birthday the week before. The helium had all but gone out of the balloon over several days, as usual. The talk turned to my father and how much Mom missed them. They had just celebrated their 27th anniversary. All at once, the deflated balloon began to rise up off the carpet and bounced up and down off the ceiling. As we got up to get it, Mother told my brother to let it go and see what it does. It continued to bounce off the ceiling for a few seconds, then drifted down the hallway toward the rear of the house. The balloon made a left turn and drifted into the room, hovered over the chair, and then, like a feather floating to the ground, dropped into the chair. My brother picked it up and tossed it into the air a few times, but with no helium in it. It fell straight onto the floor. My mother felt that the incident was a sign from Father that he was okay, and that he would always be with us. Chapter 86, a sampling of spectral snippets. At the Ramsey Cemetery in Norton, Virginia, late-night visitors get a chill no matter how hot the weather. Whispers can be heard amongst the tombstones, as are footsteps from unseen entities, and an eerie train whistle, although no train ever passes, and the railroad's been moved quite a ways away from the graveyard. Employees at the Smithfield restaurant say they've seen a phantom imbiber, drinker, at the bar after the place is closed for the evening. On approach, he disappears. At the Longfellow Middle School in Fairfax, the ghost of a former principal who passed away 45 years ago, 65 years ago now, still walks the halls of his former school.
You were playing with Doreen just now? And I said, yes. Where is she? And she said, Asha, you were playing with this girl today. And I said, yes. She was showing me your vanity with all the makeup and the perfumes, and in your closet, the bear. And I could tell that something was not right. My mom just looks to her and then kind of puts her arm on my shoulder like, it's okay. Doreen's, she's not with us anymore, Asha. Doreen was her first niece, and she had a undiagnosed heart condition and passed away 2 months prior. All the things that I was describing were things that I wouldn't have been able to know, things that they had done together. They would sit on that same bench. They would put makeup on each other.
Harlem and the Colonial Projects on 159th and 8th. In 1979, we moved out to Patchogue, Long Island, when I was about 10. Totally different world out there. It was incredible. Getting something a little eat, a little snack, and all of a sudden, I see some type of airish, ghostly figure. Like you can see the arms.
But if there are ghosts, they are not evil.
Having worked here this long and worked the hours that I do, if there are ghosts here, they're nice ghosts, they're pleasant ghosts, they're good feelings in this building, not feelings of tragedy or any sadness.
Has the female stranger returned to the scene of her death to seek out the warmth and compassion she received there? No one really knows. But visitors to St. Paul's Cemetery are a bit more certain of seeing her ghostly apparition.
They stop and meditate, and sometimes while they're meditating, they see a beautiful young lady walking along. They're kind of surprised because they don't know where she came from. And as she's walking or standing, they sometimes look someplace else, look back, and she's gone. They never know where she came from.
Haunted Places, a National Directory, Delaware, Cape Henlopen State Park. A cylindrical shaft of rough stone rises out of the mist here and shines a flickering beacon at ships that approach the coast. Some locals call it the Corpse Light, and others have dubbed it the Bad Weather Witch. This phenomenon is often mistaken for a lighthouse and has been responsible for many deaths. The first disaster was on December 25th, 1655, when the captain of the Devonshireman steered his vessel toward the lighthouse during a storm. Nearly 200 people passed away when the ship hit the rocks. Over the years, 100 more have also passed in wrecks here. Legend says that the Phantom Lighthouse is an old Delaware Native American curse of a drum of stone that signals death to all white men and approachers to the sea around the 1650s. And on May 25th, wow, my birthday, 1796, De Braak, a Dutch ship, was lured too close to the shore and broke apart in the bay. Sometimes the phantom ship returns to reenact the disaster. The ghost of a lone Native American atop a mysterious rock was sighted by multiple witnesses in 1800, just before a barge hit the rocks. And in 1980, the USS Poet, a 12,000-ton grain carrier, vanished without a trace near the coast of Cape Henlopen. The park is 17 miles northeast of Georgetown at the end of Highway 404, District of Columbia, D.C. K Street. The K Street Bridge. For many years around the turn of the century, a headless ghost terrified people walking around K Street on the riverbank and near the K Street Bridge. The newspapers were full of accounts of encounters with the specter, thought to be someone that was beheaded by vigilantes for some unknown crime, but it was mainly sensationalized news. Maryland. Hood College. Dope. The oldest building on the campus of this women's college is actually haunted by a very loud ghost. The sounds of happy laughter and animated conversation are most often heard on the top floor. This college was established in 1893, but Broadbeck Hall was built in 1868 as a beer garden tavern. Broadbeck Hall is next to the administrative building at Hood College, Rosemont Avenue in Frederick, Maryland. North Carolina. Brown Mountain. The lights. Now some say the strange lights on this ebon-crested mountain are caused by the restless spirit of a man who's found near the bottom slope. Others believe that the lights are actually unidentified flying objects. Scientists say they're actually some sort of unknown electromagnetic discharge, and the red and white light shooting is only seen during the autumn months when it's moonless. The phenomenon was first observed by the Cherokee Native Americans around 1200. The site was studied by the German scientist Gerard de Brom in 1771, and in 1913, interest in the phenomenon resulted in a study by the U.S. Geologic Survey, and another survey was done in the 1970s. by the Oak Ridge Isochronous Observation Network. Now, both groups reached similar observations and conclusion that some of the sightings were caused actually by train and truck lights that refracted from the areas beyond Brown Mountain. But the studies did not attempt to explain the hundreds of sightings that occurred pre-trains and concluded that a large percentage of the modern reports actually remained inexplicable. The lights usually occur around 7 at night and last for about 30 seconds before completely disappearing. Local resident and former congressional candidate Ralph Lale claims to have encountered some strange beings on the mountains there in 1962. And of course, some more far-fetched believers think that there's an underground base there. The area of Brown Mountain is located in Burke County, North Carolina, and the western part of the state, between Morganton and Lenoir, Highway 181. It's marked by a Forest Service sign, which explains the history of the lights, as well as it can. Bernville, Pennsylvania, which is hell. What we know today as crop circles were actually called hexendons by the Pennsylvania Dutch. These flattened circles of wheat were blamed on dancing witches in those days. This mountain was where the witches gathered, especially on May 1st, for the Walpurgisnacht. Their phantoms, along with the strange balls of light, are still seen on this hilltop, called Hexenkopf, where the witches had. The 800-foot-high mountain crest runs between Virginville and Windsor Castle in Williams Township. Follow Hexenkopf Road along the bluff that overlooks the Stout Valley. This area is west of Allentown. Oli, sacred oak. A powerful presence in this great oak tree was revered by the Native Americans nearby and the European invaders alike. Even today, people come to the base of the 200-year-old tree to perform rituals, say goodbye to their loved ones, meditate, and share in its energy. A huge chestnut oak is at the rear of a private farmyard at Friedensburg Road in the Oli Valley, Pennsylvania. Valley Forge, the National Military Park. The phantom of General Anthony Wayne on his trusty horse Nab have been reported roaming the battlefield here. His ghost has also been encountered near the statue erected in his honor at Brandywine Battlefield. Phantom sentries have been seen on the hilltop, the Valley Forge, as well as the ghosts of spies who have been executed there. The park is at the junction of I-76 and Highway 422, just northwest of Philadelphia. Valley Forge National Military Park. Virginia, Fredericksburg, St. George's Episcopal Church. The apparition of a mysterious lady dressed in a dark dress and wearing a veil has been seen kneeling at the altar here. It was founded, this church, in 1720. It is located on Princess Anne Street, between George and Caroline. Manassas, the Old Town Inn, which I can vouch for, is definitely haunted. I'll tell you my experience after this story here. A ghost nicknamed Miss Lucy, that's the one, haunts room 52 on the old section of this building. Sometimes she wanders into room 50 or 54, and strolls around the restaurant. Guests and employees have witnessed her playful antics many times. She is blamed for strange scratching sounds, messing up beds, unplugging appliances, and similar pranks. On July 1991, a couple was awakened in the middle of the night by a heavy presence on their bed. An hour later, the husband levitated out of bed and was dropped on the floor promptly. That morning, the same couple encountered Miss Lucy in the restaurant, staring at them. Manassas is in northeast Virginia, 27 miles west of Arlington, on Highway 28. Yeah, the Old Town Inn is haunted by Miss Lucy, and usually she wanders into the adjacent rooms, and if she thinks that you're causing a riffraff, she will promptly put a stop to it. Usually, it's the unplugging of the appliances and just feeling like she's in the room. Sometimes, if she thinks you're being too loud, she'll just interrupt. Haunted Virginia! Ghostly lights and fireballs. Lights in Linwood Cemetery. There's another graveyard near Linwood, Virginia, where lights have been seen. One person admitted to visiting the graveyard several times as a teenager, a few times late at night. He went on to say that the graveyard is fenced in and it's somewhat overgrown. There are spots sunken in where the graves are, and still were. Others have only plain rocks for the headstones, but he never saw anything out of the ordinary himself. The story goes the lights are supposed to be Civil War soldiers' lanterns, Native American spirits, and just those who have had their graves disturbed, and spirits still need to be put to rest. Chapter 34, Virginian African American Stories. Most African Americans are the descendants of enslaved Africans held in the United States from 1600 to 1865 and onward. The first enslaved Africans were brought to Jamestown, Virginia, in 1619. The English settlers treated them as indentured servants, well, mainly as laborers that were unpaid and brutally, and released them after a number of years, if they were so lucky. This practice was gradually replaced by a more race chattel-based slavery that was used in the Caribbean islands and the African continent. Freed, these former enslaved Africans became competitors for income, for ideological thought, and for property in the eyes of capitalism. Even more so, released servants had to be replaced, but making slaves was more profitable. Massachusetts became the first colony to legalize this in 1641, and the other colonies followed not too long after, passed laws that made the children of enslaved Africans and the non-Christian forever indebted to them. The African American folktales have roots in West African literary and cultural forms of expression and worldview. When the Africans were taken from their homeland forcibly and brought here, they also brought with them us, our individual cultures, our language, our customs. But the context was lost, and a lot of our biography was lost. And our white slaveholders tried to suppress this part of our heritage, as you know, so we had to find other ways to express and remember, mainly storytelling and songs. Folk tales and spirituals arose from life on the plantation, from working hard, mingled with the memories and customs that we brought with us, the ancestral memories that could not be taken away. These stories, from gestures to ring shouts, acting, singing, elevated stories, and to the art that we remembered. And most slave owners forbade the slaves from speaking our own languages, from Hausa to Fulani, Wolof. So we had to speak English. And we also were forbidden to read and write, though we did so in secret. It was believed that by keeping us ignorant, that there would be no uprising. But that was a lie. Our spirituals and our secret form of communication to convey discontent, homelessness, and exile were what kept us going, to express the love and joy and hope, the explanations for why things were the way they were. Some were stories for no other reason than enjoyment. Others were our lives. This has been a really cool episode of Haunted Mid-Atlantic Tales, and I hope to catch you on the flip side in March.